It's about 26 minutes to 1 o'clock now on Alberta at Noon. Adjusting to life in a new country can be difficult. You need to find somewhere to live, a job, possibly learn a whole new language, often without the support of family and friends. The number of immigrants arriving in Alberta continues to grow, with more than 25,000 coming here every year. Next month, a forum will be held in Calgary to look at what can be done to help immigrants settle into our province and integrate into society. Joining me now in studio is Fariborz Birjandian, the chair of the Alberta Association of Immigration Serving Agencies. And we also want to hear from you. If you've recently arrived in Alberta, how are things going? What has your experience been like adjusting to life in this province? And what should we be doing to welcome immigrants and make that adjustment a little bit easier? You can call right now to 1-866-468-4422 or send an email to alberta@noon@cbc.ca or, of course, a tweet to Alberta@noon. Hello.
Hi, Tara. How are you? Thank you for the opportunity.
No worries. Well, what do we know about how many people are coming to this province?
Well, actually, in numbers, if you look at the 2012 numbers, actually, it's quite a high numbers. We're looking about over 55,000 people that they come to Alberta from a different stream of immigration. I think give you exact numbers, about 26,000 people come as immigrants, as a permanent immigrants. We have similar numbers, actually, about 30,000. Also, they come as a temporary foreign workers. And again, in the past few years, we have seen an increasing number of students. So putting all together is about 55,000 people that they actually come to Alberta. And I think we see some changes because before we had experience, most people used to go to Calgary and Edmonton and some to Red Deer. But I think the good news in the past 10 years is that people are moving to the rural Alberta, especially TFW, about 25,000 out of about 70,000 temporary farm workers that are already in Alberta. They're actually in a smaller centers. That is quite significant as how things are being shaped in the future.
And what do we know about why people come here?
Of course, because we need them. That's the simple answer. I think Canada has been a country that's been built the way it is by newcomers, by immigrants. And I think it's going to continue in the future. We have serious issue with our birth rate and aging population like most industrial countries. So all of us, we are trying to answer the question, who's going to be living in this country, what kind of culture we're going to move forward with, and what position we're going to have in the global economy and the world, basically. So Canada is engaged in a very active recruitment of the immigrants. Annually, about 260,000 they come as a permanent immigrant on the different categories. The same numbers, actually, 250,000 also come as a temporary farm workers. So I think scholars say that we need really to increase that numbers. That's why Alberta adopted the number to go toward bringing people as a temporary. So once they're here, they categorize them as skilled temporary farm workers and unskilled temporary farm workers. There's quite a easy process for the skilled temporary farm workers to apply and stay in Canada, and it is challenging for the ones that are considered to be lower skilled temporary farm workers.
Well, let's talk about more challenges. What challenges do immigrants face?
Of course, I mean, you can imagine, even you're going for a few weeks to, a trip, the challenges that, one could face, or challenge of moving from Calgary just to a small city or to a big city in Canada. So you can multiply that by maybe 100 to really realize how difficult it is to come to a country like Canada. It's a great country to be. That's why I think we're very fortunate. We are the second, I think, most desirable destination for the immigrants that they want to move from their country to a new country. After the United States, Canada is most desirable. So obviously, there's a push factor in those countries that they want to come to Canada. The challenge is obviously coming in, setting a route, finding people identity in the new environment. But before that, they have to really find a place to live, a place to go and assess, to see how their prior learning can fit with what they need to do here. So it is quite a challenging. I think is expensive cities that people have to settle. I mean, people have to come with some resources to manage before they get that first job, which is a dream, and everybody has to have a Canadian experience before getting that good job, so that is a challenge. But also after the initial and kind of mid-term I think, challenges with the settlement. I think most people do quite well. But again, the whole question comes in, are they going to be part of this community? Are this going to be a country that they would call it home? Is it going to be the neighborhood connected, the children's? The good news is there was just a study done by the 37 countries, OECD countries, and Canada has been actually ranked in all categories as the most successful immigrant addressing the short-term and long-term of immigration and integration. So that is something to celebrate, but not to take it for granted.
Yes. Well, what can communities here do to help people settle?
I think, again, is a famous thing we always say. People come as a whatever categories, but at the end of the day, they come to a neighborhood. They settle in a house, in an apartment. I think federal government, province, cities, they all have helped to this process. But at the end of the day, is a community, really. How much they're engaged, that would be the level of success. You could look at countries that the community has never been involved with the settlement and integration newcomers. They're having serious problem. I mean, you can just look at the European countries. Canada actually has rated better because the community has been more involved. So to make it work, to create a condition that I think immigrants can succeed, we as a community can benefit from their, moving to Canada, is just definitely the key is community connection and community involvement. That's why I think we are leading a forum on April 17, part of the Alberta Association of Immigrant Serving Agency, which we represent all the agencies across Alberta, bringing the stakeholders together, the policymakers together, to see what we need to do to definitely make sense of this immigration and how can we collectively do to make sure people come here, they settle, they become part of this great province, and they call themselves proudly Albertans.
Okay, great. Joining me now in studio is Fariborz Birjandian, the chair of the Alberta Association of Immigration Serving Agencies. And of course, we want to hear from you out there in Alberta. If you've recently arrived in Alberta, how are things going? What has your experience been like adjusting to life in this province? And what should we be doing to welcome immigrants and make that adjustment easier? You can call us right now at 1-866-468-4422. Send an email to alberta@noon@cbc.ca or a tweet to alberta@noon. Let's take a call right now. Wendy is calling from Calgary. She helps immigrants, and we want to hear from her. Wendy, what would you like to say?
I would like to say that as a family, we have been hosting refugees for about 20 years, and there are so many benefits. I don't understand why more people don't do it. For our children, we started when the youngest was about 5. It really increases their awareness of how lucky we are to be in Canada, at the same time as it kind of de-emphasizes the materialism that's frequently found on the television or in, toy stores and that kind of thing. It also makes them much more aware of worldwide and social issues. And that, I think, is really important to start at a young age. On the other side, we mentor the refugees, teach them how to live in Canada. I mean, really little things like how to shop at a grocery store and how to take the transit. And our goal as a family is to encourage and help these newcomers become independent, happy citizens. And I guess my husband always says, you're not a Canadian citizen until you start paying income tax. So that's his goal, but one of his goals. But there's just so many little things that you can do. And we've always worked through Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, which is CCIS, and they help all people, all religions, all races. It's just been a really fabulous experience for us.
Wendy, do you think Albertans are doing enough?
I think we're doing a lot more than a lot of other places, but I think that more people could be involved. And some people, we are really involved with our families, and all of our families have been really successful, and it just drives me nuts when people say that refugees are a drain on society, because all of our families have bought houses in 5 years. They come with absolutely nothing. A suitcase of memories, but no money, no assets, absolutely nothing. They work their butts off, and they become very successful and happy citizens. And I guess when they finally start to dream again, then we realize that we've done our job. But I think that people need to get more involved and to become more tolerant in a lot of little ways.
Okay, well, thanks, Wendy, and thanks for all you're doing.
You're very welcome.
Let's go now to a tweet from Michelle. She asks, what about the Alberta budget cuts to English as a second language? We've seen ESL training be reduced from 7 to 5 years in schools across the province, and also some foreign worker cuts, training works as well. Fariborz, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that is something to be concerned about. But again, as I said, relatively we are doing well. I think this issue of the budget is the reality of also the day-to-day life of everybody. So it was not really great news when we saw that the budget from ESL, the school board, has decreased. So they have to really get that from 7 to 5 years to adjust to the budget. But again, these are some of the challenges that our institution have, how much investment they can put in. But also at the same time, I think we have to be creative. We have to see what we have and how much we can do, how much more we can do with what we have. Again, I wish we don't see those cuts, but the reality is that they're coming. I think then the onus comes back to us as a community to say, all right, if this is less, the school has to do with it. Hopefully in the new years or if a few years down the road, that would be, I think, corrected and they would have enough money. But what can we do on the current situation? I mean, you heard Wendy. I think what Wendy and her family are doing, these are the things that obviously makes a big, huge difference. And I think we have to have more community involvement as we have less resources.
Okay. Let's go back to the phone lines. We have Henry calling from Calgary. Henry, what's your reaction?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I am an immigrant to Canada. I came here when I was 9 years old, and my parents were in their early 30s. One of the things I have a problem with, as an immigrant even, but I'm a proud Canadian first and foremost, is the immigrants don't do enough to integrate into Canada itself a lot of the time. A lot of the times, they're bringing in social values which are contrary to Canadian social values, and expect us to respect them when we don't have to, where they want to trump our freedom of speech because of blasphemy laws and so on and so on. So I think that it's up to the also immigrant population that do come to integrate into Canadian population a lot more. Now, part of that comes from the education, and I do believe the ESL classes should be funded very heavily, and integration programs should be funded very heavily. But it's not just up to us as Canadians and Albertans to help them, but it's also them. They need to help themselves to integrate into the society here a lot more.
Okay, thanks, Henry. I'm seeing you nod here. Why?
I think that's again some experience that we have. I think, but you have to recognize the notion that people actually pack and come and take the challenge of settling new countries. My assumption would be, in my experience, is that they're here to be part of this society. But also we have to be a little bit more understanding of people coming from point A, point B, things are not going to change overnight. It's a process. It's a two-way street process. And again, I definitely would disagree with people that come in here and want to introduce social values, which is against Canadian Charter of Rights, which is the best in the world. So again, this is actually cause for more discussion, more talking about these things. People need time to evaluate, to understand, to feel comfortable. But again, the good news is, looking at the second generation of new Canadians in Canada, we are doing fantastic compared to any other country. But the caller has a point. I think that is really makes it even more important to have more community engagement so people can talk about that, debate that, let people to weigh. But again, people are coming to Canada. Obviously, they want to be part of this whole social and values that we have in Canada.
Okay, thank you. And let's go back to the phone lines now. We have Dadid from Edmonton. I understand you're new to Alberta and new to Canada.
Yes.
What can you tell us about your experience?
My experience, personally for me, my experience has all been positive because when I came to Canada, I came with all the educational qualifications my wife and I needed to be here. And my children are very young, so they are in the schools that they need to be in, and we have the advocacy experience for our own kids. But I'm talking about other families who have not had the opportunity to, like us, particularly in the educational sector for younger kids who are in grade school, who have not been able to get the right and appropriate education because
Hi,
they have
Dadid?
been home into certain classes. Yes.
Sorry, can you go off your speakerphone and come back on? Can you just click onto the headset? Sorry, we're just having a hard time hearing you with the other things that are going on in the background.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so we can. Please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm talking about some of the kids who have spent many years in the refugee camp without any education, and then when they come immediately, they are they are being forced to start in grades that they don't even know how to do the education. So, for example, someone who has never been to school, but because he is 15 years old, he started in 7th or 8th grade or 9th grade, and they don't even know how to do the 9th grade education. And that sometimes is very discouraging for them, and there's not adequate resources to meet those needs. And so a lot of them go without education, so they end up in menial jobs.
What would you like to see done differently?
Well, one of what we have in Africa is that they have specific schools for them. So one of them, we call them, like in Liberia, we call them night schools, where, where adults who don't have the basic education can continue with their grade school, and then during the daytime they go to work. And so maybe we can implement something like that with the Edmonton public schools or the Edmonton Catholic schools, where some of those specific adults who have never been to school can continue their education and up to the university. And not only talking about refugees, but even Canadians, some of them who have never been to school. But they can't fit into the mainstream educational system because they are too old.
Okay. But you were talking about 15-year-olds as well. Is it not important to integrate them in with peers of their own age as well?
Well, it is important for them to integrate with their peers. But a 15-year-old who has never been to school, and he doesn't know how to read and write, if you put him in a 9th grade classroom, what is he going to do there?
Okay, some good points.
How is he going to educate him?
Thank you, Dadeed. We really appreciate it, and all the best with settling in.
Thank you.
Let's go now to another phone call. We have Vito from Fort McMurray. Vito, how are you finding everything?
Hello, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just have a question regarding the long time that it takes a professional or a very well-to-do, hardworking person to bring his family in here. I think if you are working and you can prove that you can support your wife or whoever that you prefer to bring, you can bring that person at any time. But the processing time is the longest ever as compared to Germany, which is also a developed country, which takes like 3 months or 4 months.
Is that your situation right now?
Yes, please.
What's happening with you?
I'm been waiting because the processing time is supposed to be 18 months. And I think if you are waiting to bring your wife and you stay away from your wife for 18 months waiting for that process, that's pretty long. And my question is that, is there any way that we can contact the minister or whoever to facilitate the process?
Okay, well, let's throw that over to Fariborz. What do you think?
I think, again, everybody knows that in the past 2 years, our minister has made a lot of changes. I think with the system we had, I think main problem was the volume. I mean, we had millions, almost 1 million people on the waiting list. Just as it's, the professional immigrant, the economic immigrant to come, we had 130,000 on the parents' sponsorship. But again, for the the applicant and the dependent, it shouldn't be taking that long. But I think this is an issue that it actually impacts all aspects of our immigration. All the criteria is a processing time has been quite long. I agree with our caller, but I think what the CIC and Canadian Citizen Immigration, I know they're doing, they're trying to look at every criteria and try to come with a solution. I mean, from the minister point of view, I know that he does not agree with that such a long term that people have to wait. So hopefully those initiatives going to be in place and that shorten the time that people can join their family here.
All right. Well, Vito, we hope your wife can join you soon. Thank you for calling. All right, and Fariborz, let's bring it back to you. Immigrants with nursing credentials will soon have a harder time getting licensed to work in Alberta as well. Provincial funding for Mount Royal University's Internationally Educated Nurses Assessment Program is now being discontinued, and the program will end. How is that going to affect people?
Again, this is, another challenge that creates, we know we need nurses. I mean, we have hospitals that we have no nurses, so obviously that is a fact. And I know that's not only today. In the future, this shortage is going to be even more severe. So definitely having the right investment on the right time, I think that would help. I think one question that is being raised across the country is, what is the cost of settlement integration? We have to really realize that if we are telling people that if you're a nurse, you come here, there's a process, you can practice and become a nurse, which we need them. So I think we should put the investment there. I mean, it's unfortunate to hear that. Again, I know the fiscal issue is everywhere, but we have to look long-term. Sometimes we do that because, again, immigration, although it's a very high priority for Alberta, but when it comes to the budget, it does not stay on a high priority. It goes lower priority. That's why we see those cuts. But definitely we have to put those investments. We have really no choice.
Why do you think it is a low priority?
Again, the voice, one part of that is immigrant, we don't have a big voice in the country, although they do a lot of work and they go through a lot of investment to come to Canada, because the fact that immigrants can only vote after they become Canadian citizen, there's a 3 years, and then by the time they become Canadian citizen, actually get the right paper to vote, it takes about 5 to 8 years. So we don't really have a strong voice for newcomers, either refugee or immigrants in our political arena.
All right.
That would be my take.
Well, we do have an email from Annie as well. She says, it is interesting to me that you're discussing the issue of integration of immigrants the day before the International Day to Eliminate Racism, which is March 21st.
Exactly.
In Alberta, we need to do a lot more to ensure that new immigrants do not face racism in our communities. And we should make sure teachers, police, municipal staff, etc., all have access to anti-racism training.
Yeah, I think the whole notion of competency and understanding, again, is a test, really. We're bringing people from 120 different countries, different faith, different background, different cultures. Definitely our institution, our community need to be educated about the cultures. And again, as I said, it is both two-way street. And the people that come here, they have to get a full orientation of where they're going and understand how this country was built, how these values were developed, and encourage them to be part of that and try to influence it positively.
Yes, and that brings us back to the forum you're hosting. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it and how people can go?
Again, as you said, we need to keep this on the agenda. We are dealing with a very serious issue. We're bringing about 60,000 brand new people to this province. Obviously, it's almost 2% of our total population. So we need to pay attention to that. I know we pay attention on the policy part. We do program, communities engaged. But I think we need to have a lot of community discussion. When you look at this small community that's of 5,000, suddenly 400 people join them as a TFW, that changed the whole community dynamic. When they become landed and they bring families there, that is a huge experience for the school system in that area, for the health system in that area. So I think the aim is to, first of all, to put the whole question of integration on the agenda for public institutions, for our government, for our private businesses, for the community as a whole, to say we need to do it together. We have to, we can't just feel that, okay, people are coming here, they're happy they're here, so forget about it. Because the countries that they have not done that, this conversation, they are actually suffering now. They're paying a big price. So we are trying to prevent that. We are trying to engage all the stakeholders, newcomers at the same time, to say how we can do it together and we all benefit from it. And it is on April 17 in Calgary, and we know that Premier is joining us as well. So that's a good news for us.
Well, hopefully it will be all addressed next month. But in the meantime, what steps can we do to make a difference?
Again, understand, I think the simple thing would be for average Albertan Canadian, they have to understand why we're bringing people here, why we're allowing people to come in, and identify a space for them to be involved. And you heard from what Wendy and people like Wendy and her family are doing. In Alberta, we have over 5,500 volunteers that support the work that Immigrant Serving Agency across Alberta. So we need to see 10,000 Albertans to be volunteering with this agency. That's one thing that we could do. With the school, I think the younger Canadian Albertan, they need to also be educated about how they can help these new kids when they go to school or the classroom, how they can be part of their mentorship, part of their integration into the. We can even look at our business involvement, our corporate involvement. How can we make it more accommodating? So those are the things that everybody can get involved.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Fariborz Birjandian is the chair of the Alberta Association of Immigration Serving Agencies. The group is hosting a one-day provincial forum on this issue on April 17th at Calgary's TELUS Spark Science Centre. For more information, we'll put the link up on our website. Thanks for listening to Alberta at Noon.
Thank you, Tara.